My ex falsely accused me of being her child's father. But when my own sister organized protests outside my office and almost cost me my job, I sued both of them, and they never expected what happened next. I'm 29 years old, work in digital marketing for a mid-sized company, and I need to tell this story because I still can't believe it actually happened. You know? Like, it's one of those things that when you tell people they think you're exaggerating, but I swear everything is real. What happened basically destroyed my relationship with my sister and almost cost me my job, and it all started with a text message from someone I hadn't seen in 5 years. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was like 23, I dated a girl named Rachel for about 8 months. It wasn't anything serious, honestly. I mean, we went out and everything, but we never talked about the future or anything like that. The relationship ended pretty normally. No drama. We just came to the conclusion that we weren't going anywhere, and each of us moved on with our lives. There were no fights, no betrayals, nothing, just two people who realized they weren't compatible, and that was it. After that, we lost contact. Completely. We blocked each other on social media like normal people do after breaking up, and honestly, I didn't think about her for years. My life continued pretty calmly after that. I focused on my career, got a good job, dated other people. Nothing extraordinary, but I was fine, you know? I lived alone in a decent apartment, had a routine, my friends, my family. My family is pretty normal. My parents, Stephen and Karen, have been married for like 35 years. I have two siblings. Nicholas, who's 2 years older than me, and has always been basically my best friend. And Hannah, who's 4 years younger, and well, we'll get to that. Hannah and I always had a complicated relationship. We weren't close like Nicholas and I, but we didn't get along badly either. It was more like we had very different personalities. She was always very vocal about social issues, very active on social media with causes and movements, which is fine, everyone has their interests. But sometimes I felt like she saw the world in black and white, you know what I mean? Like for her, things were always good guys versus bad guys, victims versus oppressors, no middle ground. So, fast forward to like a year and a half ago, I'm in my apartment on a Sunday afternoon, watching a show or something, and I get a message from an unknown number. I open the message and it says something like, "Hi Adam, it's Rachel. I need to talk to you urgently about something important." And I just sat there like, Rachel? My ex from 5 years ago, Rachel? It seemed super weird to me, but I thought, well, maybe she needs some favor or something. I don't know. So I responded asking what was going on. What came next literally left me in shock. She tells me she has a 5-year-old son, that he's mine, and that she needs me to start paying child support. Just like that. No preamble. Nothing. And I just stared at my phone thinking, what the hell? Because the math didn't add up. I mean, we broke up 5 years ago and she's telling me the kid is 5. So supposedly she got pregnant right when we broke up or something. I responded immediately that that was impossible, that we needed to do a paternity test before talking about anything. And that's when things got weird. Rachel got super defensive, telling me how dare I doubt her, that it was obvious the kid was mine because she hadn't been with anyone else in those months, which, by the way, I had no way of knowing if that was true or not, and that a DNA test was unnecessary and offensive. I told her, look, it's nothing personal, but if you're asking me to assume legal and financial responsibility for a child, I need to be 100% sure. It's common sense. She kept insisting it wasn't necessary, to just trust her word, and I'm like, seriously? After 5 years of not talking, you want me to just believe you and start paying? About 2 weeks passed with her sending me messages, sometimes begging me to do the right thing, other times attacking me and calling me irresponsible and a deadbeat dad, which seemed absurd to me considering I didn't even know this kid supposedly existed until 2 weeks ago. I maintained my position. Told her I'd be happy to discuss everything after a paternity test and not before. Finally, I don't know if it was because she realized I wasn't going to give in, or what, she agreed to take the test. We went to a clinic like 3 weeks after the first message, and it was super awkward because she brought the kid, Aiden was his name, and the poor kid obviously didn't understand anything that was happening. He looked confused and a little scared, and I felt bad for him because this wasn't his fault, you know? But at the same time I was thinking, if this kid really was mine, why did Rachel wait 5 years to tell me? Why did she never try to contact me when she was pregnant or after the birth? None of this made sense. The results took like a week, and honestly, they were the most stressful days of my life up to that point, too. Wasn't sleeping well, couldn't concentrate at work. I kept thinking about all the possible scenarios. On one hand, if the kid was mine, I would have to completely change my life and assume an enormous responsibility for a son I didn't know existed. On the other hand, if he wasn't mine, it meant Rachel was deliberately lying and trying to manipulate me, which was also horrible to think about. I told Nicholas everything, and he supported me completely. Told me I was doing the right thing by demanding the test, and that I shouldn't feel guilty about it. When the results came, I almost cried with relief. Probability of paternity, 0%. The kid wasn't mine. There wasn't even a small possibility. It was definitive and absolute. I sent the results to Rachel and told her I never wanted to hear from her again, that what she had tried to do was horrible and to leave me alone. I thought that was the end of it, that she would apologize or at least have the decency to disappear. But no, things were just getting started. Like a week after the results, I'm at a family dinner at my parents' house, something normal we did every month or so, and Hannah arrives late and with a weird attitude. In the middle of dinner, out of nowhere, she points at me and says, "So you're going to play dumb about your son?" And I'm like, "What?" Turns out Rachel had contacted Hannah through Facebook or something, told her the whole story, obviously painting me as the villain, and Hannah believed her completely without even asking me my version first. I explained to the whole family what had happened, showed them the paternity test results on my phone, and it was so frustrating because the literal scientific evidence was right there that the kid wasn't mine, and Hannah kept saying things like DNA tests can be wrong, that maybe I manipulated the results, that Rachel had no reason to lie. My parents stayed quiet, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation, and Nicholas came to my defense, telling Hannah she was being ridiculous and to stop getting involved in something that didn't concern her. Hannah got furious, started yelling at me that I was an oppressor, that I was using my male privilege to avoid my responsibilities, that it was typical of men to abandon their children, and I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her, "Hannah, there's a DNA test, a scientific test that proves he's not my son. What more do you want?" But she was already convinced that I was the bad guy in the story, and nothing was going to change her opinion. Dinner ended horribly. Hannah left furious, slamming the door, and I stayed there with my parents trying to explain the whole situation from the beginning. My dad, Stephen, told me he believed me and that Hannah was out of line. But my mom, Karen, tried to be diplomatic, saying she understood why Hannah was upset because Rachel had told her a very different story. I told my mom, "But Mom, you have the DNA results right in front of you. It's not my word. Against Rachel's, it's science." And she just nodded, but I could see she was conflicted because she didn't want to choose sides between her children. I thought that after a few days things would calm down, that Hannah would reflect and realize she was wrong. But oh God, I was so wrong. Like 2 weeks later, I'm at my work, in an important meeting with potential clients, and my assistant comes in interrupting, which she never does, and tells me I need to come out because there's a problem. I go out, and in the office lobby are Hannah and Rachel has the kid with her, and they're holding a huge sign that says something like, "This building employs a deadbeat dad," and my name. I can't describe what I felt in that moment. It was like a mix of humiliation, fury, disbelief, panic. My coworkers were coming out of their offices to see what was happening. The clients who were in the meeting could see everything from the conference room, and I just kept thinking, this can't be happening. This has to be a nightmare. I told Hannah and Rachel to leave immediately, that this was completely inappropriate, but they started yelling at me in front of everyone, saying I was a coward, that I abandoned my son, basically making a massive scene. I had to call security to get them out, and it was mortifying. The whole office saw all the drama. My boss called me to his office afterwards and told me he understood I had personal problems, but that he couldn't allow that to affect the work environment, that the clients had left without closing the deal, and that if something like that happened again, he would have to consider my position at the company. I tried to explain that it wasn't my fault, that they were false accusations, but he just said to resolve my problems outside the office. And that night I called a lawyer. I couldn't handle this alone anymore. I needed legal help because clearly Hannah and Rachel weren't going to stop. The lawyer, Gregory Park was his name, told me we could send cease and desist letters for harassment and potentially sue for defamation if they continued. I gave him all the information, the text messages, the DNA results, witness testimonies from the incident at my work, everything. Gregory sent the letters like 3 days later, both to Rachel and Hannah, explaining that they had proof that the accusations were false and that any additional harassment or defamation would result in legal action. I thought that would scare them and they'd stop. But no, if anything, it made them angrier. Hannah called me screaming that I was threatening her legally, that I was an abuser using the system to silence victims, and I'm like, victims of what? The kid isn't mine. There's a DNA test. Then things escalated to a level I never imagined. Rachel and Hannah started a social media campaign, created posts with my photo, my full name, my company's name, saying I was a deadbeat dad who abandoned his son, asking people to share and to contact my work to demand they fire me. I can't explain how violating that felt, seeing your face and your personal information being shared by hundreds of people who don't know you, who are judging you based on lies, comments from people saying I was human garbage, that I deserved to lose everything. My work started receiving calls and emails. My boss called me again, now much more upset, saying this was affecting the company's reputation and that I needed to resolve it immediately or they were going to have to let me go. I begged him to give me a little more time, showed him the DNA results, explained that my lawyer was handling everything, but he was more worried about the company than my personal situation, which I guess I understand, but it also hurt because I'd been working there for years. Nicholas supported me incredibly during all this. He called me every day, told me we were going to get through this, that the truth would eventually win. My parents were in a horrible position. Mom tried to mediate and ask Hannah to stop, but Hannah told her that if she supported me, she was supporting an abuser. And my dad, Stephen, was furious with Hannah, told her that if she didn't stop, he was going to cut her off financially. She still received help from them to pay for her apartment. Then Hannah and Rachel organized a protest. A literal protest outside my office building. There were like 20 people. Not many, but enough to cause a scene. With signs and everything, chanting things. My coworkers had to pass through them to enter the building. Potential clients saw all this, and I was inside feeling like my life was falling apart. My boss told me that day I was suspended until I resolved the situation, that they couldn't continue operating with this distraction. That night I told Gregory, we need to sue them. I can't go on like this. This has to stop. He said we had enough evidence for a solid case of harassment and defamation, that the social media posts, the incidents at my work, everything was documented. We prepared the lawsuit and filed it like a week later, suing Rachel and Hannah for defamation, harassment, and emotional and financial damages. When they received notification of the lawsuit, things finally started to change. Rachel apparently panicked, contacted Gregory saying she wanted to reach a settlement, that she didn't have money for a trial, that everything had been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, can you believe it? After almost ruining my life, almost costing me my job, publicly humiliating me, she calls it a misunderstanding. Gregory negotiated with her lawyer, and they reached an agreement where she would admit the accusations were false, delete all the social media posts, issue a public apology, and pay an amount for damages. It wasn't a huge amount, but something was something. Hannah was more difficult. She was convinced she was right, that this was a moral fight. She kept insisting that even though the kid wasn't mine biologically, she finally accepted the DNA results after months. I should support him anyway because Rachel needed it. I told her, Hannah, that doesn't make any sense. You can't force people to raise children that aren't theirs just because the mother needs help. There are social assistance systems for that. There are organizations, but you can't falsely accuse someone and ruin their life. We had a court-ordered conciliation meeting. It was brutally awkward. We were all there. Hannah, Rachel, their lawyers, Gregory and me, and a mediator. Rachel basically backed down on everything, admitted she had made mistakes, though she never really admitted she deliberately lied, just said she was confused. And Hannah finally broke down, started crying, saying she was just trying to help, that she thought she was doing the right thing. Part of me felt sorry for her in that moment because I saw that she really believed she was on the right side, but the other part of me was still furious because she never gave me benefit of the doubt. Her own brother, and because her actions almost destroyed my career and my reputation. The mediator helped us reach an agreement where Hannah would also delete all her posts, issue an apology, and pay damages. Significantly more than Rachel because the harassment had been more extensive on her part. Hannah didn't have that money. She ended up having to ask my mom, Karen, for help to pay, which caused a whole other family drama because Dad, Stephen, was furious that Mom was helping her after everything she did. Mom said she couldn't let her daughter face such severe legal consequences. Dad said Hannah needed to learn that actions have consequences. It was a complete family mess. The settlements were finalized like 6 months ago. Rachel deleted everything and issued a lukewarm apology on social media that basically nobody saw because nobody was paying attention to her anymore. Hannah did the same. I was able to return to my job, but honestly, the damage was already done. Everyone in the office knew what had happened. They looked at me differently, whispered when I passed by, and although they didn't fire me, I felt like my reputation there would never fully recover. 2 months ago, I quit and got a job at another company, basically started over, and it's been better because nobody there knows this whole story. My relationship with Hannah is destroyed. We haven't talked since the conciliation. She tried to contact me once to really apologize, but I'm still not ready for that. Maybe someday, but not now. Mom is sad because her family is divided. Dad supports my decision to keep distance from Hannah. Nicholas and I are closer than ever. He was my rock during all this. And Rachel, well, I don't know what happened to her. I hope she found the kid's real father, or at least that she stopped trying to attribute him to random men from her past. What bothers me most about all this is thinking about how many people believed the accusations without questioning, how many people judged me and condemned me based on social media posts, without knowing my side of the story, without wondering if maybe there was more to the story. And it bothers me that Hannah, my own sister, believed me capable of abandoning a child without even hearing my version first. That's what hurts the most, honestly. Last week, my dad asked me if I would ever forgive Hannah. I told him I didn't know, that maybe with time, but that right now, every time I think about her, I remember standing in my office lobby being humiliated in front of my colleagues and clients. I remember the anxiety of waking up every day, not knowing what new thing they were going to make up or where they were going to show up. I remember almost losing my job and my reputation because of lies. And that's not easily forgotten. I guess the lesson I took from all this is that you should always verify things before believing serious accusations, that family doesn't always support you like they should, and that sometimes you have to fight legally to protect yourself even when you don't want to, even when it's your own sister. And I also learned the value of having proof, because if I hadn't insisted on that DNA test from the beginning, if I had given in to Rachel's pressure to just trust her word, I'd probably be paying child support for a kid who isn't mine, and my whole life would be completely different. That gives me chills just thinking about it.